Welcome to art class. Today we are studying our Artist of the Month, Jennifer Tyers. Jennifer Tyers is a landscape artist. She was born in Africa in the country of Tanzania. Her work is known as plein air watercolors. It means she paints what she sees in person live. She doesn't paint from photos. She's also traveled and lived in different Asian countries, including Borneo, Thailand, Malaysia, and Japan. In addition to painting landscapes, Jennifer Tyers has painted vegetables. She's also done illustrations, and she's created books. After watching the demo, you will choose something to paint. You can use the handouts attached to your Google Classroom or Seesaw Classroom. I have images of landscapes, plants, clip art of plants, vegetables, or you can find something in your house, maybe a vegetable you have in your refrigerator or a plant you have outside. Time to pause the video and collect your supplies. First, you will draw your composition. Then paint with watercolors. Remember to use what you know about color theory when you're painting.
Once you've drawn your image, whether it's a plant or fruit or vegetable, or landscape, decide what colors you're going to use.
Tip 1. Use varying amounts of water.
And load up your brush with a little bit of what we call pigment, and then you also want to try loading your brush up with a lot. So that has more water, so I'm getting a light color. And your goal
is to use tints and shades of one color and use at least one intermediate color.
Is throughout your painting to get different saturations of color.
Tip 2. More water makes lighter colors or tints.
See how that creates slightly darker value than where we have a lot of water.
Tip 3. Adding black will make a shade.
If you want to make it more of a shade, you can mix in a tad bit of black, just a tad, to make it a little darker green. Alright, so your goal today is to paint with different tints of a color and different shades. So the shade is adding black and the tint is adding more water.
Tip 4. Use a paper towel to clean your paint.
If your color becomes one you don't like, just blot it a little bit. You can mix shades of yellow in to get what we call an intermediate color. Hopefully everyone's remembering that from our earlier lessons on color mixing. Please see how many tints and values you can get from one color or an intermediate color. A reminder, an intermediate color is when we mix a color with the color that's right next to it in the color wheel. So green gets mixed with yellow or it gets mixed with blue. If we want to experiment a lot, you can add just a little bit of blue and get a little bit of a darker value in the plant. It might make it look kind of turquoise. If it starts to get too blue and you're like, that's not really what I was going for, just go back and add more green. And remember, the same applies. Another trick with your watercolors is you can gently blot it.
Add another layer of paint when it dries.
So if you have a value that's too light, you can come back over it when it dries with another layer of color and darken it up. Increase the saturation of the color.
Remember to add details.
Okay, friends, I have my base layer, and now I'm going to go in and add some more details of my drawing that I'm studying. I'm studying this drawing, and there's many veins in these plants. And so I'm going to go back and add extra green veins.
Use your crayons to add details.
I might go in later and add these vein lines of the plants. Either I could do it with a marker or a colored pencil or a crayon. Most of you probably know by now that if you paint over crayon, the watercolor resists. The opposite is true too. You can go back once it's done and add the detail, and that creates another effect if it's still wet. That's the kind of effect you're going to get.
Remember to also think about a background.
I'm going to let this dry, and then I'm going to decide if I'm going to leave the back white or use maybe my crayons to color it in or a different color of watercolor to color it in.
Use the rubric found in your classroom as a checklist for all the requirements in this painting. You want to make sure to receive full credit. Classroom, and it's optional to post to Padlet. Can't wait to see your masterpieces!